morning, everyone. Thank you for being here at 8 a.m. after the concert. Who went to the concert? Was it good? You recovered? Cool. Thank you for coming to talk about amazing site experiences, hyper-personalized. Raise your hand if you're using Lightning Communities, if you work on Lightning Communities. Awesome. Well, the exciting news is, as you know, everything has been clicks up to now. The building of the site, the personalization of the site, and what we're going to talk about is sort of a new wave of APIs that are coming out that are going to allow you to do everything programmatically. My name is David Goldbrenner. I'm a product manager in Community Cloud and a lead product manager for personalization. I've got some great speakers. I'll introduce us in a moment. So first of all, thank you for everything you do. Forward-looking statement. So Safe Harbor, this functionality is not GA yet. It will Safe Harbor go GA in spring 20. So please make purchasing decisions based on currently shipping functionality. So again, I'm David Goldbrenner. I'm the lead for personalization, and I'm a product manager. So fortunately, I brought 3 people who actually know what they're talking about, developers. So we've got Parth, who's going to be talking about Experience Bundle, which is an API for building sites. And then Love and Ismail, who are going to be talking about the new personalization APIs that can be used in conjunction with that. So let's talk about site building and personalization through APIs. So first of all, we can't give you the whole background on personalization here. In case you're not as familiar, we have a whole bunch of resources on personalization and the new site building, otherwise known as Experience Bundle APIs. So we have nice spelled out URLs there. You guys can just take a photo, and then you can go and check these out at your leisure. We're going to focus not on the background of these things, but on the actual APIs for this session. Okay, cool. So if we go to the next slide. So as of today, as you know, building your site and personalizing it, clicks only. You go to Builder, you create pages. You go and you create audiences. Raise your hand if you're using personalization and audiences and communities today. Fantastic, great to see it. But this was clicks only. All right. Come spring 20, or now in developer preview, these things will be fully API enabled. And we're going to show you how to build sites and how to personalize them purely through the API. So what exactly is new? The first is an API called Experience Bundle. All right, this is a new type of metadata API, which allows you to retrieve the guts of the Lightning community as well-structured, human-readable JSON files, right? And you can then go ahead and you can create, update, delete community pages, themes, branding, regions, components. You can put it all under source control. It becomes a programmatic way to build communities. This is dev preview and pilot available right now. This is actually available in Developer Edition orgs. If you just go to Setup Community Settings, you'll find a little checkbox that says Enable Experience Bundle. You can turn it on and start using it. Nothing else required. Now, what's new in the personalization APIs? Okay, well, the Audience MD API, which was pre-existing, has been enhanced. Up to now, it only retrieved the audiences, but not their targets. Come spring 20, it will retrieve the audiences with their targets, and you can then deploy all of that from sandbox to production. So you can build elaborate personalization and deploy from sandbox to production, and the audiences and all of their targets, pages, components, branding sets will go with it. Now, we have a brand new Chatter REST endpoint, also known as Connect, which will allow you to create, retrieve, update, and delete audiences. And a new /targets endpoint, which will allow you to point those audiences to targets, such as pages, components, and branding sets in the Lightning community. Now, this is also developer preview. It's not quite as easy to turn on. What you want to do is, if you want to preview this, is send an email to me. My email's right there. Send the org ID of a new Developer Edition org that does not have any communities in it. Just confirm in the email that there are no communities, and I will activate it and send you back documentation. Okay? Now, again, just to emphasize, those 2 APIs, Experience Bundle and the Personalization APIs, are separate. They can and often will be used together, but they can also be used separately. Some use cases for the personalization APIs. At design time, create large numbers of audiences with scripts. For example, an audience for each of 500 accounts or zip codes. Target those audiences to pages, components, branding sets, and even build custom components that display personalized Salesforce data. You'll see a bit of that later on. At runtime, you can create audiences automatically. So for example, if a new account is signed up, you can have a trigger or a flow that goes and automatically creates an audience. It targets those to Salesforce data. And you could even potentially build your own interfaces for audience and targeting management. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Parth. Parth is our expert on Experience Bundle, and he's going to start talking about site building using the new Experience Bundle metadata API.
Very good, everyone. Very good morning, everyone. This is Parth Manwar, and today I'll be talking about how can we create and build community programmatically. But before jumping into the demo part, let me talk about the tools which we'll be using today, right? So we'll use a workbench, which is a client to access Salesforce API ecosystem. We'll also use Visual Studio Code, which is an IDE, and with that we have some of the Salesforce plugin installed. We'll also use a SFDX CLI. How many of you are aware about the SFDX? Nice. And if you're not aware, we have some few nice trailheads. We'll give you a quick, nice intro about it as well. So SFDX is basically a command line interface using which you can execute commands and manage your organization's metadata very well. We'll also use the communities builder, which is the declarative way to modifying communities. So in today's demo, we'll be talking about a fictitious company called Capricorn Cafe, which would like to build a community for their tea and coffee lovers. Right? So if I want to build a community for them, I'll start with choosing a template from which could be either be a standard or a custom template, and using that I can create a community. Once the community is created, I would like to modify my community according to my need. So what will I do to modify community? I'll change the themes and brandings of the community. I'll add few page variations, add the components to those pages. I'll do the necessary changes, and I'll personalize my community. So once the community looks good, I'll publish and activate my community so that the community is available to use for all the added members, right? Now let's see how can we do all this programmatically. So demo time. So to create a community, we need to know a template to start with. So this is a GET API, which will provide you all available templates in your organization, including all the out-of-the-box and custom templates. And so as you can see, it provides all the templates, including the custom templates, which I've created named Capricorn Coffee. And these are the same templates. If you create a community in a declarative way, you'll see a template. So you'll find the same templates with API as well. Now, with this API, we'll choose a template name, and using another API, which is the post API, we can create a community. So what we need to supply, right? So we need to supply the community name, URL path prefix, and template name. And once we execute this API, you'll see that community is being created right now, right? This is awesome, yeah. Now, while the community is being created, let me show you how the community's metadata will look like if we are to use SFDX. So what I've opened is, this is the Visual Studio Code, and I've opened the SFDX project, which is connected to the same Scratch org which we are using right now. And on the left-hand side, what you are seeing is the metadata of your organization. So you can see that there are content assets, CSP trusted sites, and all the metadata of your organization, right? So now let me show you the source tracking capability as well of the SFDX. So we can execute the SFDX force source status command to know that which metadata are changed, whether locally or on the server. So I think the community is still being created right now, but if, let's say, there are metadata created in the server, you can always use SFDX force source pull command to fetch the changed metadata in your local SFDX project, right? Let me use the existing metadata of the community which I created earlier for the demo purposes. So previously, the existing metadata was exposed through a site.com metadata type. Now, what does it look like? Let me show you. So existing site.com metadata you'll see a single binary blob file. What does it mean? Which means that all the community's metadata, like themes, brandings, pages, routes, was exposed through this single binary blob file. Now, this is definitely not readable, neither updatable, right? Then how can we update a community programmatically? Well, the answer is experience bundle. So what is experience bundle? The experience bundle is a brand new metadata type which we have created, and let me show you how does it look like. So as you can see, there is at the first level, there is the experiences folder, under which you'll see a folder for each communities which we have created. And if you expand any of the community, you'll see the actual community metadata well-structured grouped together. Now, first let me show you how does it group together. So let's go to community builder. So this is a community builder for the same community. And let's say if I want to change the themes and brandings, I go here. So there's a theme-related metadata, there's branding sets-related metadata. So all this metadata, if you go back to the Visual Studio Code, you will see there is a themes folder. So all themes-related metadata, you will find it under the corresponding JSON file. So you will see a metadata in a JSON format. The branding set-related metadata, you will see under the branding sets folder. We go back to the community builder. You'll see on top left, you'll see various routes available to this community. And corresponding to each route, there will be a page variations, right? So if we go back to the, here, so all the routes related information, metadata, you'll see under the route folder, and each route corresponding to each JSON file. Similar to that, for page variations, you will see those views under the views folder, and those metadata related information you will find under the views folder. Now let's go back to the community builder. You know that we can go to the settings and we can do change bunch of information, like you can add the languages, add the SEO related information, CMS Connect. All this configuration related metadata you will find under the config folder. So this is how it's well structured, right? Now let me go back to the community builder and show you how the home view and how the JSON file look like. So if we see the page structure here, you will see a bunch of regions for these pages, and in those regions you will see there are a bunch of components added to this region. Now let me go back to the home JSON file. Yeah, so here you're seeing that all the metadata related information, like which layout it's using, what is the ID, label. So for all those regions which we are seeing, you'll find those under this regions area. So let me take one of the region, like this is a header, and under which we are seeing that there were 6 components. So all the components related metadata you will find, there is a component array under the regions, right? So there's a component called headline component, so you'll find all those metadata here. Now, if we see this community's builder page, we are saying this is a very nice view and nice home view for my coffee lovers. But what if I want to create a similar view for my tea lovers? So let's create a page variation programmatically. What I will do is I'll create a new view called home for tea lovers or something like that. And basically, I will add duplicate the same content, and I need to change the content accordingly. So what I can do is basically, I need to make sure that all my IDs and labels are not duplicated. And let me change a few things for my new home, right? So what I've changed here is I'll change the title for my headline component, and I've changed the banner text. As well as there was a nice image of a coffee. So for tea lovers, I've added a nice image URL for my tea lovers. Now, let's try to push this metadata. So if we go back to the builder, you're seeing that for this home route, currently there is only one home page variation. Now, once the metadata will get pushed, we should be seeing a 2-page variation for this home route. Now, let's see whether, the metadata has got pushed. Let's go back to the builder and try to refresh the builder. as you can see, there are 2 page variations now.
Woo.
This is one home, and what we have added is home for T-level. Let's see how does it look like. So as you can see, for headline components, what we changed, you can see it over here. And we can see a nice T image for the T levels. So we have created a nice page variations completely programmatically. We didn't do anything on the builder side. So this might be just one of the use case which experience bundle can do, but you can solve much more complex use cases. Generally, what you want to do is move your components among those regions. So basically, you can cut paste the content in the JSON file. If you want to create a completely new page, right? So you can add the corresponding route.json related information and the view page variation for that particular route. You can push those meta and you will see a brand new page. And like for experience bundle metadata, you can manage actually the multiple communities at the same time. So if you change multiple metadata for more than one communities, you can actually push it together. So you don't need to go back to each community builder and change the metadata. For example, like if you want to change the page background color for all the communities, you can change it in one go in all branding set JSON files, and you can push it together, right? It's very awesome. So similar to the other SFD metadata, which you can see in the SFD, you can also put the experience bundle under the version control system, and you can do your CI/CD capabilities on top of it. Yeah, so what we have created is a nice page variation for my T lovers. Now, what we'll do is, if let's say I want to personalize, so I'd like to call upon my colleague Lav Gupta, which will show you how can we create the audiences programmatically, and eventually we'll assign this page variation to the newly created audience. Lav, over to you.
Thank you, Parth. Good morning, everyone. This is Lav Gupta. So what we have seen right now is how you create site metadata, site-related stuff programmatically using SFDX. Now, what me and Ismail are going to talk about is how you do personalization of your communities. So basically, how you create audiences, how you create targets. So we have 2 personas which are logging into this community. One is tea lover and one are coffee lovers. So we want to show this tea page, which we have created recently, to tea lovers, and the coffee lovers should see the coffee page, which was already the existing home page. So for that, we need 2 things. First one is an audience, so that the tea lovers can fall into tea audience and coffee lovers can fall into coffee audience. Second one, a way to target this page. This is just an experience bundle and how we can target it. So audience creation, I'll show sometime later in the session. First of all, let's see how we can target this page, how can make this experience bundle targetable. So what we have created a new concept called experience variations, not to confuse with page variations. Experience variations can be done for pages, branding sets, and component visibilities, everything. So experience variations are a small piece of code which directs a site to change its default behavior. So we have an existing experience variation created for a component or topic catalog page. So what it says is we have a target ID. So this target ID is the component ID of the component which we are changing the visibility for. And we have in XML, we have a thing like property override. We say the property is visible of this component, it's true. So whichever audience this experience variation is assigned to will be able to see this component. Other audiences won't be able to see this component. So now we have created experience bundle. Let's create an experience variation for that so that we can target it later in the session. So we'll create an experience variation with some name, home variations or JSON. And we take the content from, okay. So if I explain to you what this is, so here also let's look at the target ID. So target ID is the home route URL ID. The route ID for our home URL, that's the target ID. And the active view ID in the property overrides, we have active view ID. So active view ID is the page ID for the new page which we have created. So what we are directing using this experience variation is home page should use the new page when it's assigned to some audience. Okay, so we have pushed this. Now, this is pushed, and we can target it as it is. So for targeting, we need the first thing. The audience is still missing. We don't have a T audience. So let's go ahead we'll publish the community first. We'll go to Workbench and see our audience API, which David was talking about. We have enhanced our audience APIs. So let's see to this context user what all audiences are applicable to. So if we execute this command, to this context user, the coffee lover audience is applicable. So what are the criteria for this audience to be applicable? First one, the beverage type of the user should be coffee. And the second criteria says the profile ID of this user should be sysadmin. So, and if you go to a lot later, the formula filter down, the formula filter type says any criteria matches. It means if any of these two above criteria matches, the user will be applicable to this audience. Further down, we have targets also getting displayed in this audience API. The first target is the topic catalog page variation. So this user will be shown a different variation of topic catalog page instead of a normal topic page. And if you go up, I'll tell you which parameter you need to use for displaying all the criteria. So we have to use, if we are using audience get API, we have to use include audience criteria equal to true so that we display the criteria. Otherwise, the output is without criteria. We have certain other parameters which you can go through the document and get to know. So let's now create our T audience which we want. So we'll use the same connect API, but this time it will be a post API. And JSON is pretty simple. So if you look at the criteria, the criteria says that if the beverage type of user is T, and the T or the audience can be, the user can be categorized as a T audience. So let's execute this. The audience is created, the criteria is just we gave as input, and if you see there are no targets, because this is a newly created audience which we have just created in this session, and we don't have any targets. So Ismail will help you in some time regarding how to target this T audience to the T homepage. But before going there, let's talk about something about MD API, how you can take your changes from the sandbox machine, and how you can deploy them onto your production machine. So simply we do our MD retrieve. Excuse me. So we download the zip file. If we look at its content, so it displays all the audience in your whole org, including all the communities, audiences. So this is the last one, is the new audience which we have created recently. Excuse me, guys. OK. So it's straightforward as it was shown in Connect API. We have criteria. Along with that, we have the audience name on the top, and the formula filter type is any criteria matches. This one does not have targets. David spoke about we are including targets in the audience metadata API now. So let's look at some audience which is already having targets. So this coffee lover audience is having targets. The criteria is the beverage type should be coffee, and the profile should be admin. And we are displaying a target also here now. So the topic catalog page variation will be visible to this audiences. So it means targets are now you can take this XML, you can take it on any production machine and deploy it there. So you'll have targets there, you'll have audiences there, everything will be there. So what you have seen till now is Path created some site.com metadata. I created an audience, I created an experience variation on top of it to make it targetable. Excuse me. So now I'll call upon Ismail. He'll help us target this thing and see how we can see these things in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Love. Sorry. So hi, good morning. My name is Ismail Kasimi. And what I'm going to show you now as part of this part of the demo, we're going to go through the personalization target API to be able to target different things in the community to your audiences. And that's going to create the unique experiences in the community for the users. So what we're going to start with is we're going to use the page variation that Pod created for the tea lovers, and we're going to assign it to an audience, the newly created audience for tea lovers that Love created. So first, let's go to the community, log in as tea lover user. So as you can see here, I'm logging into the community that was created earlier as a user, a tea lover user. But as you can see, we get in the default homepage, which is coffee-specific content in here. So this is not really the page that the tea lover user wants to see. So we want to change this. We want to show him the T specific content page that was created earlier. So how do we do that using the personalization API? So we're gonna go to the workbench and we're gonna use the personalization target API to assign the T-lover audience to the newly created page variations for homepage variation for T-lovers. So let's do that. So yeah, so I'm using the target. So Love showed you the audience API where you could create audiences and retrieve all the audiences that apply to the context user. So what I'm showing you now is the target API under the personalization family. And what I have is you could create multiple targets in here and assign them to different audiences. But for this demo, we're only gonna target one thing. So what I have, the parameters that I'm passing in is the audience ID. The audience ID in here is the audience for the ID for the T-lover audience that was created earlier. The group name is the ID of the homepage route URL. And the target type is experience variation. So what that means is that experience variation is a variation of the basically UI elements in the community. The target value is the developer name for the page variation. We're gonna ignore priority for now, but the published status, we passing it as live. What that means is that we're gonna create this target or this association between the target and the audience directly on the live site. So we don't have, what that gives us is you don't have to go and call the publish API or go to your builder, community builder to publish. So it will automatically apply on your live site. The other option will be to pass in publish status draft, but in that case, in order to see it on your live site, you'll have to go and do the publish on your builder. So let's go ahead and execute. So the target was created with all the information that was passed in for that audience and page variation. So now let's go back to the community for the T-lover, logged in as the T-lover user, and refresh the community. So as you can see now, the home page changed, and now we're seeing the T-lover page variation for this user. So, great. So, sorry. So there's other thing that I would like to show you, other than being able to target UI elements in your community, we can also target custom objects, Salesforce custom object records. So on top of that, so let me go and show you how that works. So what we did is we created this custom object in this org called beverage, and it's a very simple custom object. It has just a name, image URL for the beverage, and a type. It can only be coffee or tea. So I inserted a bunch of records in here of coffee and tea brands. So what I also did is we created this custom component and that we dropped into the homepage of the community. And this custom component just shows a list of beverages that come from the custom object that were created. But what's different about this custom component is that in its Apex controller, it's calling the personalization target API to basically personalize the content of the component for the context user. So what I basically did is we associated the records that we have for that custom object to different audiences that were created earlier. So for a tea beverage, we associated a tea lover audience. For a coffee beverage, we associated a coffee lover audience. I will show you how that's been done earlier. So Love is showing you the Apex controller here. So as you can see, we're making a target API call. We're making an API call to the target API, and we pass in few parameters in there. So let's go to the workbench and see what results that target API is returning for this user. So yeah, so I'm passing few parameters in here for this target API, and so I want to basically only be able to see the targets associated with the custom object that I created, the beverage custom object. So I'm filtering out the targets by passing the beverage as a target type only. And I'm also passing a different param. All those params are optional, of course. They include all matching targets within group equal true. What that means is that it doesn't apply the priority logic and returns all the targets that are matched for this user. So as you can see, I get a list of targets, and they all of type beverage, and so this user is the tea lover user. So all these targets are the type of tea brands. So let's go to the community and log in as the coffee lover. And we're going to show what's the content inside the custom component. So I'm logged in as the coffee lover, and this is what I'm seeing inside my newly created custom component. So as you can see, this user only sees coffee brands. So it's because he's part of the coffee lover audience. So let's show the content for the tea lover. So we're going to log in as the tea lover user who's part of the tea lover audience. And he's going to see for the same component, he's going to see a completely different content. Yeah, here it is. So this user is only seeing tea beverages in here. So another thing I would like to say is that we actually just, for the assignment of these records, we use the audiences that were created earlier. So basically, you can just create audiences for your community and use them for UI elements like component page branding, but also to assign Salesforce records as well for your community. So we show you how you could leverage the personalization platform through the API, and it's very exciting. But I mean, we're not done yet. There's one more thing I would like to show you, and that's how you can actually assign a Salesforce record automatically through the API using the Apex triggers. So I created this simple Apex trigger for the beverage custom object. And what it does is every time you insert a new record, all it does is based on the beverage type, it will assign it to the proper audience. So if it is inserting a new coffee brand, it will basically just check the type and assign it to the coffee lover audience. And for tea brand, it will do the same. So yeah, so let's go to the community for the tea lover and show what the tea lover is seeing first. So as you can see here, so we're logged in as the tea lover user, and he's only seeing 6 different tea brands in here, a list of 6 different teas. So what we're going to do, we're going to insert a new one, a new tea record, and we want it to show up in here as part of his selection of teas. So we're going to go to the custom object. We're going to insert a new tea called Manhattan Black, which is a new exciting tea. And then we put the image for it, and the type is tea. So we're gonna insert it, and what happens behind the scene, the Apex trigger gets called, and then it does the assignment of assigning this newly created record to the audience. So if we go back to the community now, and we refresh it, we should be able to see one more record in that list. So yeah, here it is, so Manhattan Black.
Nice.
So basically, this helps us if you have people in an organization that all they care about is creating content, and they don't care about personalization or doing any assignment or anything like that. You can create automated scripts to create a unique experience in your community. So I'll go back to David.
All right, awesome, thank you. So let me wrap up. This is really rich, dense session. I hope you guys enjoyed it. There's a lot of great new stuff here, and I'm really proud of these guys and their teams that developed all of this. So let's take a look at, recall what we did. So Parth, he created a community programmatically. He pulled all of its metadata And then he modified it. He created a whole new page using that metadata. So just by cutting and pasting code, he was able to create that T-Lovers homepage variation, which then showed up in Builder, all right? So that's pretty amazing. That's site building through the Experience Bundle API. Go turn it on in your orgs and experiment with it. Then what happened is Love came along, and he talked about experience variations, which are those little chunks of code that tell the site to alter its default behavior. And he created an experience variation to actually now utilize that new homepage page variation. He then created an audience for T-Lovers completely programmatically. He retrieved the audiences for the logged in context user. He showed you how you can also retrieve all those audiences in the MD API with their targets so you can deploy them from sandbox to production. And then Ismail came along and put it all together, right? And he pointed that new T audience, which was programmatically created, to that page variation, which was programmatically created and published and refreshed. And we saw that now the T lover was getting the right homepage experience, right? And then maybe even the coolest thing is Ismail showed you how you can use those same audiences, right? Reuse those audiences in any custom work you do in your community. So you're not just targeting pages, components, and branding sets, but you can actually use those APIs in custom components, and you can control the data that shows up in those custom components. In this case, it was beverage records, right? You can control which items show up by using those same audiences, thereby creating a hyper-personalized or completely personalized community experience through the Experience Bundle and Personalization APIs. Again, all going GA in Spring 20, Safe Harbor, developer previews now, so please get familiar with it, kick the tires, and you'll be ready to run when it rolls out to production. So thank you all very much. Big hand for the team over here. And we'll answer questions. The trigger code? Yeah.
Shall I do it? Zoom.
Other questions? I think we've got a few minutes so people can come up to the mic, and then we'll also hang out for a minute after it's over. We got one here?
What's that?
Question?
Yeah, so we've been deploying, I mean, we have our CI/CD, we've been deploying the binary file into production and going through the whole process. Sometimes along the way we've found that the binary file doesn't necessarily clear out everything, or maybe there's something left behind in there. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on because it's binary. When we start using this in the future, do you know if that will like completely reset the site? You know, is it going to leave anything residual behind, or?
Parth, do you have any idea?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Oh, yeah, so we've had the binary file that we've been deploying, and sometimes if someone makes maybe a change in production or, you know, whatever it may be, sometimes that binary file doesn't completely reset the site. I'm not sure what the reasoning is. It's hard to tell when it's binary files that we're deploying. And then, you know, you pull it down the metadata, you see another binary file, and it's like, okay, well, we'll just now put that in our CI/CD and now go forward. But so I'm just curious if this, you know, deploying the metadata that we have now, if that will completely reset the site.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, whatever you're seeing, the information, yeah, you will try to deploy it. You will see the exactly same changes in your like production or target org.
Cool.
With that experience bundle.
Thanks. That's awesome.
Another question?
Yeah, any chance that personalization API will be available through Apex rather than just through
Yes.
the rest?
Yep.
Yeah?
That was Apex
Great.
that you saw out there.
No, but I mean, he had to do an HTTP request. And
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I apologize. It will be. So we're running on the Winter 20 code line, so you saw an HTTP request, but in spring, Apex will be there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And final question, this is all available through two ISVs to package, right? Or not?
No.
No?
I mean,
Well-
the audience and the target, they will not be available through packaging. You can deploy them through metadata API, but not packaging.
Yeah, the issue is that when you move like those audience criteria from one org to another, they don't often make sense. They refer to fields and other things that don't necessarily exist. So the audiences and their targets won't package, but they will deploy through the MD API.
Right. After the package has been installed and I have all the data in there.
You could potentially then, use the MD API to deploy if you have the same, if the target community is really similar to the one you're starting with.
Right. Okay. I'm guessing though, with the usages of IDs, that I'll have to play around, right, so they match after.
Ismail, what do you think? You think like if you create a community from a package and it's really similar to an original community, could you deploy the audiences and their targets from one to the other?
From in the same org, from one org to another.
Can you? Are we talking about from one org to another?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's using the metadata API, so you could you deploy this, and there are no IDs. There are certain things that targets, for example, that are using custom objects because custom object is not deployable, so you won't be part of that package. But
and I also can't. I know that when you deploy the experience bundle from sandbox to production, the IDs of all those elements, all those components stay the same. So the targeting still works. But if you're spinning up a package, I'm not sure that the IDs would actually stay the same. Do you guys know?
Yeah, I mean, during the packaging, it will deploy the same experience bundle. So the IDs will go, but depends on like the IDs references are within experience bundle or you're referencing the other IDs.
Yeah, the IDs in experience bundle, they're more like developer name. They're not like Salesforce IDs.
Yeah, I saw. It was like pretty long.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it was not like the 15, 18,
right.
So they should stay the same. So their reference should work.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Other questions? Sure.
So my question is then, can I go from one sandbox to another to production for a whole community with all this stuff in it? So say I fire up a community in a sandbox and I want to move it to the next sandbox into production. Is that available? Can I do that through this change set basically? Well, not change set, but the command line?
Whatever you can do with the existing change set functionality with the other meta type, you can do the same with experience bundle as well. So experience bundle will be available with change set functionality.
So the experience bundle, is it the entire community or as well?
It's the entire community's metadata. I mean, so some of the metadata, like let's say content asset, they are separate. But yeah, whatever you are seeing within the site.com metadata type, so experience bundle is basically a replacement of site.com metadata type. The other metadata type will remain the same.
Okay, thank you.
But to clarify, the audiences, and Ismail, correct me if I'm wrong, you will move the community, and then you'll have to separately extract the audiences and their targets using the MD API, get that XML file, and then go deploy that to the target.
There will be dependencies. So if you deploy a network, one of the dependency will be experience bundle, and then audiences. They all show up into changes as dependencies. So if you push the whole thing together, then it's the whole community.
So is this all something I have to do through SFDX?
Sure.